Imagine a world where millions of men walk silently, their voices unheard, their struggles unseen. A world where society celebrates outward strength and visible success, yet quietly condemns emotional vulnerability. They walk among us, yet few notice. They smile, they nod, they perform the rituals of life as if nothing is amiss. But inside, something quietly, steadily erodes. This is not a story about weakness. It is not a story about defeat. It is a story about the invisible weight that modern society places on the shoulders of men, and the quiet exodus of those who can no longer bear it. Alan Watts once asked us to question the very structures of our lives, to observe the patterns we often ignore. And if we look closely, we see that the silence of men is not merely a personal choice, it is a societal echo, a reflection of the ways the world has conditioned them to hide, suppress, and endure without complaint. From a young age, men are told to be stoic, to bear burdens without question, to solve problems alone. Emotions are dangerous, tears are weakness, vulnerability is a liability. And so they learn early to construct walls around their hearts. These walls, once necessary for survival, eventually become prisons, and the act of walking away in silence becomes a quiet rebellion against a world that never asked how they felt. But why does this happen? Why are millions of men choosing withdrawal over confrontation, detachment over engagement? The answer lies not only in the external pressures of society but in the internal conflict that every human experiences, the tension between the self we are told to be and the self we truly are. For men, this conflict is magnified, intensified by centuries of cultural expectation. They are expected to provide, to protect, to conquer, but rarely to question, to explore, or to simply exist without purpose. And when life offers no space to breathe, no room to express, silence becomes the only refuge. Alan Watts would say that we live in a world obsessed with control, structure, and definition. We categorize, label, and organize every facet of existence, yet we neglect the fluidity of human experience. Men, like all humans, are not machines programmed for endless output. They are dynamic, fragile, complex beings who crave meaning beyond utility. And yet, society often reduces their worth to productivity, success, and dominance. When their inner lives, their doubts, their dreams, their fears, do not align with these metrics, they begin to withdraw. Walking away is not a sign of surrender, it is a manifestation of a deeper wisdom, an instinctual act of preservation, or refusal to be complicit in a system that erases their humanity. There is a beauty in silence. There is a wisdom in the quiet. Yet, for men, silence often carries a bitter edge, a loneliness that can feel unbearable. They watch the world, they participate, yet they remain separate, unseen observers of a society that rarely asks them to speak their truth. And in this silence, they discover a paradox. The very act of walking away allows them to preserve their integrity, their mental and emotional health, yet it also isolates them further. Human connection becomes a risk, intimacy a potential threat, and slowly, the world becomes something to navigate cautiously, rather than to embrace fully. We can explore this phenomenon not just through psychology or sociology, but through philosophy. Consider the concept of authenticity as discussed by thinkers like Kierkegaard or Heidegger. Authenticity is the courage to exist as one truly is, rather than as the world expects. For millions of men, walking away in silence is a painful, reluctant pursuit of authenticity. They reject the roles imposed upon them, even if it means stepping into loneliness. They choose the inner life over the outer performance. They choose truth over facade. And yet, society labels this choice as failure, misunderstanding, or even weakness. There is also the lesson of balance here, a theme that resonates deeply with Eastern philosophy, which Alan Watts so often explored. Life, he reminds us, is a dance between doing and being, between action and stillness, between expression and quietude. Men walking away are not abandoning life, they are reclaiming the rhythm that has been stolen from them, the subtle, gentle pulse of their own existence that is drowned out by the demands of a noisy, relentless world. They are not quitting, they are learning to breathe. And yet, the tragedy lies in misunderstanding. Families, partners, friends, and colleagues often see withdrawal as rejection, anger, or apathy. They do not see the internal struggle, the silent battles fought in the hidden chambers of the mind. They do not see the weight of expectations, the exhaustion of pretending, the despair of invisibility. And so these men continue to walk in silence, unacknowledged, uncelebrated, yet deeply, profoundly alive in ways that are invisible to the casual observer. Perhaps what we are witnessing is the evolution of modern masculinity. Perhaps the old paradigms, strength defined by dominance, worth measured by output, are crumbling. And in this crumbling, men are quietly redefining themselves. They are learning that strength is not always loud, that courage is not always visible, that freedom often comes through stillness rather than struggle. They are learning that the most profound victories are not celebrated in the streets or posted on social media, they are internal, private, and infinitely personal. So, what can we, as a society, learn from this silence? Perhaps the lesson is empathy, the recognition that a man's silence is not absence, but presence in a different form. Perhaps the lesson is patience, the understanding that inner battles cannot be rushed or coerced. Perhaps the lesson is humility, the acceptance that we do not know the full measure of another person's journey. And perhaps, most importantly, the lesson is reflection, the courage to ask ourselves how we, too, might be complicit in creating a world that drives men into quiet withdrawal rather than open engagement. There is a power in listening, in noticing, in acknowledging without judgment. There is a strength in providing space for expression without expectation. There is a grace in honoring the inner life of others, even when it remains hidden, mysterious, and silent. And for the millions of men walking away quietly, this recognition can be a lifeline, a subtle invitation back into connection, a reminder that they are seen even when they feel invisible. As we ponder this, we confront a deeper truth: the world does not need more noise, it needs more understanding. It does not need more performance, it needs more presence. And it does not need more judgment, it needs more compassion. Silence is not empty, it is full of meaning, waiting for those willing to observe, to respect, and to honor it. So, the next time you see a man walking quietly through life, do not dismiss him. Do not assume that he is lost, angry, or broken. Perhaps he is simply learning to exist on his own terms, embracing a subtle courage that the loudest voices in society cannot comprehend. Perhaps he is teaching us, silently, the most profound lesson of all, that sometimes, the bravest act is not to fight, not to shout, not to prove, but to simply walk, quietly, faithfully, and authentically through a world that would rather define you than understand you. And as you reflect on this, ask yourself, are we listening enough? Are we creating spaces where silence is honored and humanity is celebrated? And most importantly, how do we reclaim the courage to walk with others, not by speaking over them, but by witnessing their silent journey with compassion and understanding? Because in the end, perhaps the true measure of a society is not how loudly it celebrates its victories, but how deeply it honors the quiet courage of those who walk in silence.